All right. Okay, this is my first show today. We produced a show before this one. Yeah, I wasn't on the one before this one, but I had to turn it on, get it all worked out.
Excellent.
Let's see, we getting anybody in here? Here comes some people. All right, looks like we're connected to the Facebooks and YouTube's on. A few people, 12 people. Let's give it another 20, 30 seconds. Let's see. Let me see this. Okay. All right. How's it going, everybody? Charan's in the house. Been a while. Probably been about 3 or 4 months since we talked.
It
Which would have
has.
which would have put us in what? Probably October, November of last year. God, that's like about a 50-year linear time span in 3 or 4 months.
It feels like longer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's
Yeah,
weird. It feels everything feels like it's longer, but it's all at the same time. It feels like it's moving fast. I don't know. It's
it
strange.
is. It
Yeah,
is.
I haven't caught it. I caught a couple of your videos. I think last month in January. I saw a couple of things you were doing. What have you been into? I mean, I know you're big on the DNA, and I know you've launched your own thing last year. I remember that because we
Yeah.
announced. I remember we announced it. But what have you been getting into? Is it still pretty much the same thing, getting deeper, or
Just
is it?
as you know, and I'm sure your experience is the same. It's like getting deeper and deeper, and the interesting thing is, it's getting easier
It is
and
getting easier.
quicker.
Yeah, it is. It's getting easier. It's getting quicker, and at the same time, that's happening. The distortion is getting stupider. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the most of the global stage, not like family and stuff like that. But yeah, there's plenty of people that I've seen evidence of on this show and just in the community that are they're being responsible souls, responsible co-creators. I think is that the difference between where we were and where we're at, uh, being unconscious or conscious in our creation.
Yeah, and I feel that that's happened in the last few months since we've spoken.
Yeah.
Is that where we were? I remember, I think we were talking about how we were really feeling the energy was shifting,
Hmm.
and now it feels like we're in it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you know, because I mean, I'm always going to bring the DNA into it, and that is that our DNA is now more aligned with that divinity, and we have the choice in every moment to be
Yeah.
aligned to that. And in a very quick way, rather than sort of our beliefs and all of that, that
Yeah.
those can be there and they are there,
Yeah.
but we can tune into this divinity. And I think that's why it's so powerful right now. And it's just definitely things are happening so much quicker.
Are things happening to your body like they were last year? I mean, are you feeling anything on a physical level? I mean, like, I get a lot of tones. I know they've been picking up a lot lately. A lot of energy moving in my body. Um, I could feel energy coming into my body. And then I have these, like, you get really cold, like in the bones cold, or I get really hot, like I just feel like there's an oven inside of me. I guess it's just, well, however you want to define it, but I guess it's just it's all energy and it's all heading the same way.
Exactly. I mean, I have had that. It's like I've had heat sometimes. Um, but more sensations, like just noticing things and them
Mm,
just flowing through me quite quickly. So, for
yeah,
instance, if I want to make note of, say, something is, coming into my space that doesn't feel comfortable, it's like I can be very, very comfortable with it by
mm,
just noticing it within myself,
yeah,
and I'm watching it inside of myself, because we were talking about the unity,
yeah,
in that it's like everything outside is us, we are it, and it's all one, right? So as we feel it inside of ourselves and it's moving through us, like you said, you know, you're feeling stuff. And the way that I feel it is like, as soon as I do that and place my attention on being, I'm the responsible person for that, instantly things shift. And then the reflection happens on the outside to show me that what I did just now inside myself is now being shown to me outside as being a mirror image of that.
We could stop the show right there. That was it. That was it right there. And I think that part was kind of weird when it started coming in, like actually seeing the magic of it, the alchemical part of it. You know, as you changed, as within, without, and then it's kind of starting to become more common. You know, like you can hold that frequency longer, or they're coming quicker, or something. But the other side of it is, for me, which kind of shifted back, not in a bad way, but like I got a little bit triggered yesterday morning. I saw this dude that kind of like disowned me and unfriended me in a really weird way. And I had gotten past it, but I happened to see him and it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I thought, oh, what is this? And what I'm saying is, and this is an example, it's a little bit, it's a little bit more difficult to accept what I'm looking at as me. So I have to do a little bit more work. But it used to be a whole lot of work too. But you know, there's two sides to that. And
Yeah, definitely.
And actually, that's the way I came out of it with this guy. Was I looked at him and I said, okay, there's something in there about yourself that you're feeling, because you can't deny it. And then I said, but what about his attributes? So I started looking at his good stuff, and then I found that equilibrium.
Yeah. But definitely what you just said, you know, that what used to be a lot of hard work is now not feeling like hard work at all. And oh my God, are we not ready for that? Like, seriously.
I don't think we have any idea, you know, how far this thing can go. Like in terms of that, what you're talking about, in terms of our capabilities. And look, if we're transforming and we're noticing we're transforming the circle closest to us when we walk into a situation that we're not comfortable with, or we weren't comfortable with, and we walk into it the way you said, which is what people are starting to do, and you see the change in your environment, imagine how far that can go out.
Have you've read Masters of the Far East?
Mm-hmm. How'd you know that? Did I tell you that before?
No, I just said
I read it like 20,
it was a question.
25 years ago. Yeah, Masters of the Far East. Yeah.
I mean, that book, to me, it just like I could read it over, those books. I could read it over and over again, because what they're capable of, or we're capable of, it's like it opens our eyes up to what we're capable of, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just manifesting things just with consciousness, knowing that we have that capability, or teleporting, or you know, all of it.
See, that's what I'm interested in. I mean, I know that there's topics out there that the collective is more aware of than other topics, like mask and vaccines and quarantines and elections and fraud and whatever, you know. But to me, I think I have to remind myself, and even in my work, like, what message are you putting out? What are you talking about? Because I'm with you. We've waited long enough. We deserve to put our energy into that direction, as opposed to playing in this low vibrational stuff that's just fear based, and we know it. I mean, you know, well, we know it.
Here's something fun for you then, Todd. So, you know, we're talking about like teleporting, or if you're talking about shape shifting. Well, I believe it's really possible, because when we talk about stepping from, say, we have our belief systems, you know, above our DNA, all of this information that's contributing to us having the fears and all of those things, whether it's ancestral, whether it's, you know, our own traumas, all of that. But if we go to the energy of source below the DNA, which is really everything, the light, that when we access that, that becomes our expression.
Hmm.
And that, if that is unity, if that is like, say, the unity cell or unity consciousness or the quantum field that encompasses everything.
Yeah.
Well, if you're shape-shifting into, say, I don't know, a bird or, whatever, it's like, I know it sounds really far-fetched, but we know, I mean, the shamans did it. And it's like, well, okay, so how does that, like, if you were to bring science into it, like, how does that even work? Well, literally, if we connect with that unity within ourselves and that is expressed, any intention that comes in is so pure because there's no discrimination between anything or anyone.
Yeah.
And then you have a choice in that moment to just shift.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's so natural. I mean, it's not saying I'm there yet, but it's the potential of that exists when we step into that place, which I think is so amazing.
It is. And look at us in dream state. More people are having lucid dreams and they're remembering their dreams. And I mean, think about us in dreams. We're not restricted. We're not constricted. But I've actually thought about that very recently. What you said about what's the science of it? Like, is DNA some kind of organic from God AI, or is it pure? I don't know. It's crazy to me. Everything's the same energy, but at some point, where does the science stop, or you know what I mean? And the spirit take over. Maybe it's all the same thing.
Well, if it is unity, this is how I feel about it, then there is no difference.
Yeah, that's true.
Because then that's how then we can be anything, because the DNA can then just be an expression of it. And it doesn't necessarily, we don't need to put it into like 3D.
No.
Like, oh, the DNA is this. But actually, I mean, I think I've said to you on another show that the DNA is literally a wormhole.
Yeah.
And that we can travel through it. And I believe that the connection with divinity within ourselves, the unity within ourselves, allows us to move through that wormhole. And that it goes beyond time and space to where we can connect with anything and everything.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because the more we see as us externally, the more aligned we are with oneness. And I mean, I've heard a lot of stories on this show. I can only look at my own situation. I mean, Morgan and I morphed for 45 minutes in front of each other, so that's shapeshifting. And it was also an element of I don't know how you would say it, but like a dimensional experience where you're still conscious and awake with your eyes open.
Mm-hmm.
So like ceiling walls disappear, there's stars, there's ships, there's other things. And then I think there's a level of teleporting. I always think of teleporting like, somebody shoots you out of a cannon, you're like, you know. But I've had experiences, and I know Morgan's had it, and I'm sure others have. And this has been, over the last few weeks, it's happened a few times where I'm not where I'm at. I'm in another place. I can't make it all out and everything. It's not like imagination. I'm actually have my eyes open, and I do this sometimes. I do it consciously, and I'm kind of pulled into it as well. But yeah, I think something's going on with that. And
So
I
is
think
that
the
this is not,
telepathy too.
it's not in your dream state, it's
Mm-mm.
in
No.
waking.
No, like we had in December, she went to bed one night. I didn't go to bed with her. And the next day she said, I opened my eyes and I was on a ship. And immediately, I guess because of the telepathy, I kind of plugged into it. So then that night we went to bed, and she always keeps her eyes closed. She doesn't like to see anything. I keep mine open. But we connected, and I consciously went there. So there was intent. And I had my eyes open, and I saw quite a bit of stuff. I saw, like, being in a hallway. I saw the beings, they were blue. I saw myself as a being. I saw Morgan as a being. And it was really weird. Then I saw a being that was both of us. It was weird. But and then from there I had another episode like 2 weeks later where these tall blue beings formed like light beings, and we had a conversation. But I think these things are happening all over the place, and they're happening 8 billion different ways, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I have another friend who's been, sort of feels like she's in connection with the blue beings herself as well. And she said she feels like she becomes the blue being. It's just like you said. So, and then it just comes back to that unity thing. Like, if we are all of it, we're just experiencing ourselves in different forms and expressions of that, which...
Well, it would make sense because I saw a post today that said, it was actually on Morgan's page. I went up to her page and it was somebody's meme, and it said, remember when you're transmuting ancestral lineage like trauma and stuff, that they also had attributes, strengths, and wisdoms, that type of thing. And we can pull from that too. So every time we connect to something, whatever it is, a person or whatever the energy is, that to me is like tapping into the Akashic. But to tap into the Akashic, you got to be the Akashic, because you are the Akashic, right? Everything's available.
And that goes back to what I said earlier, is that, accessing that divinity within ourselves, which is everything. And I feel that, the Akash or the Akashic records or anything is available to us in that place. Like, we literally are all of it. It's not anything that's out there that we have to go get. What we have to understand, and I know you know this, but it's the shift I think that's really happened is that where we were looking for things on the outside, it's now actually turned around and it's from the inside out.
Yeah.
So that anything we're doing, because I know for myself, like for years, I was looking at fixing things on the outside. Like, so here's a belief that I need to fix, or here's this I need to fix. But I'm finding that all I need to do is just 180 degrees back to myself, and then come from that place. And in that place, it's already done. It's done.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Don't do anything.
That's right. And when it gets done, when it happens, it's, for me anyway, you don't feel it like right away. Like a switch doesn't really go off all the time, but over the next few days, you start to really integrate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you said what you just said, because again, I had an experience like that about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was, we lay down, I was connected, and I forget how it started, but basically, I would have to put it in this metaphoric sense. My higher self came in. No, I was looking for my higher self, put it that way. And my higher self came in, was kind of emerging, and said, why are you looking out there? I'm in here, I'm you. And then he said, this body is still me. This is, we were one and the same. And then it went into this thing about, this conversation you've always had, like Todd, and who do you think that is? So it went on to explain to me how it's all becoming one voice. And I remember, 10 years ago when I reawoke and I was on the streets and I had a lot of conversations with the universe. And one of the things I heard was, when you speak the same to everyone, no matter who it is, no matter what format, and you have the same voice, you'll have integrated. Well, I don't know how the rest would go, but you're certainly not done. Maybe that's a new phase, but that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. On the fact that we're never done, I think that's always going to be the case in the world, because the way I see it is that when we're with unity consciousness, it's like having a whiteboard, and the whiteboard just knows it's just a whiteboard. And then when you see something that doesn't sort of fit with you, that becomes like a dot on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
And so the dot allows you to recognize the whiteboard. Yeah. So it's like, if anything does happen, it's not a judgment to anything or anyone, because is only a reflection back to yourself of your own divinity, which I think is amazing. And again, it's what we just discussed, you know, it's coming back to ourselves. It's not out there. It's not the black dot. It's actually the black dot pointing at the whiteboard to say,
yeah, yeah. It's like you're the light is the dark you've been standing in all along. It's like, oh wait, and yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Oh, and another thing too, I think that's happening is, and I've said this before, but you know we all had to deal with traumas from our past, right?
mm-hmm.
And so at whatever modalities, whatever process people use, that was a big thing. Shadow work, zero pointing, and it continues. But I forget what I was going to say now. Oh, so that kept us from looking back, and then it was where we're at and like looking forward. And to me, like the looking forward now is being taken away. Like I had a friend call me last night. We're working on a project, and he said, "When do you want to do it?" And it's kind of like a gathering, probably be like 100 people, and 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 I thought in my mind, you know, God, you need some time for that. Like what, maybe August, September, early October, because it's going to be in Sedona. He goes, no, no, no. I'm thinking like April, May, June. And I just went, whoa, you know, like, I guess that makes sense. It would be fast. And, you know, and I said, well, what about quarantine? He goes, what about it? I don't know anything about it. I said, I don't either. Let's just do it. But yeah, the future's being taken away. Like it almost makes me cringe sometimes. That might be a little harsh, but you know, Morgan might talk about, you know, 8 months from now, this or 10, and I'm like going, it doesn't feel right. It's just a very, and I know it sounds like a cliche and corny, but it's a very much a moment by moment existence. That's I don't know if it's requiring it, but the standard is being fully present.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've noticed that myself. It's like being present is where we actually come into that unity place.
Mm-hmm.
And then trying to live in a world where it's time based.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at the moment, where it's like balancing that and that. But yet the irony is that all we really need to do is step into that place of unity, because then that time actually it dissolves.
Yeah.
And so like your friend said, you know, it can be then rather than October, because things are happening so much quicker. And I feel it's more like spherical time now, where we're actually, so rather than sort of having linear time where it's like the past and then the middle or the present and then we've got the future, it's a circle with a dot in the middle, which is like the dot being presence. And then everything around the circle is all possibilities of all things available for us. And then that's where we go beyond time and space. As soon as we become present, that, you know, when you think like, oh, this is going to take this long to do, and then suddenly it's like, oh, here it is. Like, how did that even happen? I had that experience with a friend that I'm working with, and we had another project we were working with. We met in December, and we were working through it, and it was a big thing. And we were like, well, how, we don't really, you know, on linear time scale, we would think that this would take a long time, but we've literally done it in it's only it's literally just gone past January, and we met in December, and it's pretty much done. I mean, like, that wouldn't have been possible before.
I've had this crazy thing lately where you know, when I first started out, I wrote all the time. I wasn't on video for like the first 3 or 4 years, and I wrote all the time, like 3 or 4 times a day. And so people would say, write a book, and I started to try to write a book like 5 times, but I just couldn't do it. You know, it just wasn't. I love writing, but there was something that wasn't right. But I've been hearing that call lately. Not that I'm going to do it, but I just thought that was kind of a weird vibration. And when I looked at the prospect, I just thought, okay, well, what would that take? It just seemed like such an easy task compared to the way it looked and felt back then. And it's not just that, it's other things too. But I think that's part of the thing you said about as things occur, we're processing and getting through them quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, even now, like we're just talking, the reason I went silent is because I can literally feel that space.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just encompasses it all.
Yeah, that's happened to me, and I felt that right when you started to say that. I think your energy hit me before the words did. I went, "Oh, I know what she," and that's why I just shook my head. But I think it's been twice in the last 3 or 4 days of broadcasting, and there was a couple of times when I wasn't broadcasting, but these happened like within 3 days of each other, and it's the same thing. And it wasn't a deja vu. And sometimes I get these super deja vus that I used to, like, oh, I know. And then you know how with the deja vu, it's like a dream, it just leaves you. And you're like, well, now what? Now what? But what happened was I was in this space and whatever the situation was, and I could feel like like a marker coming down to remind me, like before we came, when you get to this point, you're going to remember at this point, and it's going to tell you that that you're at whatever level. It's like a personal synchronicity or something. I don't know, and it's shared. So I think these kinds of what we would consider aberrations and anomalies are going to become more frequent. I think they're already doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know where that is, but I wrote it down. It's not here. I can't remember it exactly, but I don't know who said it, but there's a quote, and that is, he said, miracles are things that science can't explain, but they are like pretty much normal things that happen. I am totally saying it wrong, but it's pretty much something along those lines.
Yeah.
That we're becoming, those things that we thought were not or very unusual will literally become normality.
That's what I'm
And
saying.
and
Yeah.
and that's what I'm experiencing
Yeah.
as well.
And I think one of the things I've noticed is that, like, if you look back at the last few years in this community and in my life, and a lot of people like yourself had these stories where there was a 180, where there was something dramatic went on, and from a soul level or whatever, free will level, we decided to take this path, which is kind of atypical. But now with this kind of worldwide quarantine thing, and everybody being taken out of their, off the conveyor belt, the hamster on the wheel, there's a lot of that stuff going on. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I talked to a friend the other day, and he said, I'm not going back to work 9 to 5. I want to do something creative. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
None of that. How am I going to pay my bills? I'm going to do this.
Would he have said that before?
No, no. And I think we've all gone through that evolution. I mean, you made a jump, right? You were working in the lab for what? Wasn't it 17 years, something like that?
13
12,
years.
13 years. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's a big jump. These things that we've done that to defy or in against the grain and with social norms is actually the energy I think that we're talking about. I think it's the energy that we're feeling like right now between each other and with this vortex with the people that are here. I don't know what you call it. I guess it's love. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? It's always that. And it's not love that's definable. It's that undefinable,
Yeah.
but felt in the heart love.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
As soon as I said it, it felt it.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you said it, I felt it. And it took me back to, I guess, in the last few days too. Well, there's been a couple of occasions where that feeling in the heart, like I used to suffer seizures for about
Mm-hmm.
35 years, and there's a certain thing that goes on with your body, and I know there's a link, to the cosmic and all that because I just know, but to the human only, it feels it's not like a tickle and it's not like a pain. It's like a total loss of all functions. And that's what it felt like. And it happened to me a couple times. About 10 days ago, I had to get up from our session that night and I had to go lay on the bathroom floor because I thought I was gonna just get sick. But it was just my body just transforming. I talked to a friend yesterday, the guy I'm doing a project with. He's a really, really hard worker, like 7 days a week, and we're a lot alike. And I know him, and he he broke down in December, and for 3 weeks was in bed with COVID. And
Mm-hmm.
he said the whole time he was doing it, he knew his body was regenerating.
So here's the thing with COVID. I was having a discussion with another friend, and we were saying that I don't know if you've heard this, but I'm just opening it up to discussion, really.
Yeah,
That it's here to actually change our DNA into the God code, like literally
wow,
just awaken us. And isn't it doing that? Even if we have not been infected, or
yeah.
it's
Even
if,
even yeah, even if it isn't what it is, or if it is what it is, energetically speaking, absolutely.
yeah, because I mean, I was listening to Deepak Chopra talk about a study being done on COVID, and found that the people that did get affected really badly with it were the ones that had anxiety and
Yeah,
high stress levels in their body, whereas the ones that didn't had less inflammation in their body, so then the COVID was less likely to impact them. But the whole point here is that if you have less anxiety, then and less inflammation, it's literally coming in and just allowing you to shift. I'm not saying that it goes into your DNA
yeah.
and does anything, because I don't believe that's happening on a scientific level. That's not happening,
Okay,
but it's energetically changing. I mean, Corona in itself is crown,
right.
and it's literally that's my feeling on it. And I mean, I could be wrong, but that is my feeling.
Well,
And
I've
I
heard
was
people say that.
I was
Yeah,
having the discussion with her, and we were saying that it feels like the majority of the world, almost like the tipping point has happened where that impact has happened.
yeah, yeah. I've
So
heard. Go
yeah.
ahead. There's a little
No,
bit of a lag. I wasn't interrupting.
go ahead.
No, I've heard people not say that exactly, but I've heard people say the same thing. If you look at the energy of the words, because they're just said in a different way, different perspective, a different experience. But and I also know that back in what was it, February, March, um, after when it hit, that I know I for 2 or 3 days I knew I had it. And I just went into the RV. We were in Florida. We had an RV, so I just sat in the RV by myself for 3 days and went through it like my friend did, that I was telling you about for 3 weeks in December. But I remember at that time, and then Morgan got it, and it lasted like maybe 12 hours. And she even had me, she got her affairs in order, put it that way. That's how, and she's pretty sensitive in terms of what's going on. She's very connected to her body. But anyway, I remember around that time that in our nightly session, she started channeling that there was actually two, and one of them was an more of an organic, true virus that just had mutated from other viruses, and that the other one was, I guess, had some physical machinations to it, but it was more suggestive programming. Now this was early on. This is right when it started. I don't think there was even where we were at. I don't think there was any rules or anything. People were just starting to wear masks. It was like when the toilet paper thing happened. That was a good one too. uh,
Yeah.
but but
Well, I mean, here
it
we are on the other side of that, like a year later almost, and we
yeah,
can feel that for sure.
it feels like, I mean, half the time I feel like a rocket that I'm about to take off, and and there's a part of me going, just chill out, just relax, just be yourself. Don't get in a rush. Don't get tense or anxious. And it's just a new way of, it's new. There's like new dynamics to balance now as
Yeah.
opposed to what we worked with before. You said something a minute ago about inflammation, uh, anxiety, the relationship to inflammation. And I think I'm kind of going with what I think I heard you were implying. I'd like to find out about it is how that affects the immunity system. I mean, how much do you think the physical ailments and otherwise stem from not being in a relaxed state? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, when we're in a stress state, and you know what? The stress state, we might not even think we're stressed because we've become so used to being in a certain state. So, for instance, if somebody's so used to just constantly worrying about stuff and not recognizing that they're doing it, they don't realize that their normal levels of immunity of immune system being like is lower than where it would have been if they were not stressed.
Right.
So they wouldn't recognize that because it's just so normal for them. But when we recognize it and we shift, say for instance, you have a monk like who's meditating and it's really peaceful and calm, that person would have their immune system reflect that because your DNA is like an antenna, right? It's got antenna that is picking up the information of what's going on, and so it produces proteins in the body to connect with whatever the information is coming in. So if the information coming in is like, and that means our own mind as well, like
Right.
I've got to do this and I've got to do that, and there's just all this and there's this and that, there's all those thoughts going on day to day and day, like constantly from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep. That's going to have an impact on the DNA in that it's going to cause your body to have more cortisol and more higher stress levels because of the higher stress levels. So when we instead take 20 minutes, say, just to go walk in nature, go and just be by yourself, whatever you maybe do, I don't know, yoga or qigong or whatever it is that you like. The minute we do that, it gets that stress level down so that the impact of the immunity goes up because your body has got lower stress levels. So there's less cortisol in the body, and that is where we can then influence. So what happens with COVID is that there's a cytokine response that happens, and the cytokine response happens and creates more inflammation. So if the person's already had more inflammation in the body because of the way that they were thinking,
Right.
their way of being in life, then that inflammation can be more than what it would have been. So that's the correlation.
Wow. That's fascinating. That's
Mm-hmm.
like that 4 minutes is with that first thing you said at the top would be the perfect soundbite. Well, I never thought, I always thought of a quantum existence is coming from here to there, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
that's what's created. Like the way you explain it, now I understand how it really works. So my DNA is my God code. Let's just put it that way. And it's simply going to respond to me, right? That's it. And so me experiences things through the five senses and otherwise, and how I respond to that is picked up by the antenna of my DNA, and then basically that's what I become. And then, like you were talking about at the top of the show, then the circles around you start to change. So that to me that's a big one for me today because I've never looked at it that way. But for me to learn that information at this point tells me that that information is out there energetically, and more people are at this level and having this type of conversation or understanding.
And I think imagination is the biggest thing that we can use to help us get out of a stress state. I think, undermine imagination because we think, well, that's what children do and it's not real. But actually, if we think about what you just said, that the information that we bring in has an impact on our body. If we can imagine things, we can create our reality that way, because then literally the DNA is hearing what we're imagining.
That's right.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I do. And so we were talking about, like, okay, so the old way was, we have a little bit of fear come in, and then the other way is like we just feel completely well and just like in this bliss state or however. I mean, I'm not saying we have to stay in the bliss state, but the point is, I notice in my day-to-day that if I have something pop up that is like, I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if this will sort itself out, or how is this going to be, whether it's anything physical or anything on the outside. So what I do is I just jump in to the reality that I want in my mind.
Right.
And I literally feel it in my body. Like when I do it, I feel it.
Yeah.
And I know it's done. And and that's it.
And then you just let go, right?
Yeah.
Then you let go. Yeah.
It's done.
It's interesting because we were talking about this in the last couple of days on the show, and I guess I kind of brought it up because I said, because we were talking about, like we're talking, like where is our focus? We have all this new stuff out there, it's that's we're refamiliarizing ourselves with, right? And I said, well, what about the imagination? Because I talked to a couple of friends of mine, and granted, they're both, have quite a bit of ET in their DNA, but one of them, what has been doing this for years, and he's actually building his reality for when he transitions physically from here. And I mean, going into all these intricacies, create a planet, create a civilization, create a few clones. I mean, and I'm thinking, dude, you're like, and then the other one was more of like what you're talking about. And that's kind of what I was getting at the other day, because that part that you said about feeling it, it's one thing you can't force that feeling, right? You can't. You have to be in a certain balance or something. But yeah, to start constructing things up there and materializing them here, it just seems like we're closer to the point, or there's less separation between those 2 points now.
And I think what you said is very important, that you can't make it up. You can't pretend to feel something. And that's where it's like that authentic, being authentic to yourself. So for instance, if I'm in a place of fear and I want to shift my reality, I know I can jump into that reality, but it can only happen when you actually acknowledge where you're at.
Yeah.
So by not acknowledging the fear and thinking, oh my God, I have to run away from this fear and go into this place, you're going to take it with you. You're not going to be able to get to that place. So it's about acknowledging it, feeling it, saying, yes, I acknowledge this, and then making that shift in your imagination.
Yeah, that's like, we've all had that pattern in the back in the day. If I go here, everything's going to be better. When I get this job or when I get in this relationship. But there's that meme that goes around. I really like it. It says, you cannot get to where you want to go until you're grateful for where you're at. So you can't, and it's the same thing to me, what you're saying, because it's an energy, it's a charge. So if I like this place and I'm going to go to my hometown, right, thinking that it's going to offer something that this place doesn't, I'm still going to carry the charge with me. And at some point, if I don't become aware of it and align it, I'll just find another place to move to, which is not the loop that I'm supposed to be in. It's anywhere is the same place, I guess.
And another way to look at it is that if it is the unity consciousness is encompassing all things, but the minute we have a resistance to something, it's going to have a charge, And so then you're not in the unity, which is all of it. But when you become sort of, what's the word for it, neutral to it, then you're able to, if we're talking about being in that sphere, like I've got an image right here. Like if we just talk about being in there and being in the present moment, that is literally where we create miracles.
Yeah.
Just by being in that place.
And I think what's a challenge is, so it's so hard to like that. That's a very good diagram. I see that diagram as being like a sphere, right? And we dip like we have these strands, almost like an octopus to me. I see these like strands, and there's certain things that we're right in the middle on, and then these other strands are out here. So as these other strands are trying to puncture, and immerse and entwine into that core, there's a part of us that's so smart that thinks we're so smart because we're so connected at these other levels that it takes us a little time to see the things that we can't see, which is, I guess, just part of the process. But I think like your approach and what you've been talking about today, it's like, forget about all that. Just stay right here, right? Just, it's not even words. It's not even particular disciplines or habits. It's just a certain space. And in that space you're right. There is no time and space, and everything is available. And we just open the door. Like, I think maybe two of us have walked in the room so far. There's a whole bunch of unlimited potential out there.
Yeah. And isn't that where it's all at? Like, literally. And I know you can feel it right now too. It's like, just, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and the other thing too, it's like, it's the little things. That's why I think it's so important to me to have conversations like this, or to have open commentary, in a post about this thing, just to get the information out, just to get the experience out. It's not about, hey, this is what you do, here's step one. It's not like that. It's just like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. It's a new language. I mean, how do you explain that sphere with the little star in the middle and the strand? I mean, how do you do this? And everybody's got a different perspective, and we need it all. But to me, this type of experience, uh, it's more powerful than anything we're reading about in the paper. It really is.
It's here right now.
Yeah.
And this is where science and spirituality and ancient wisdom all meet. Just when you become present, it's like your biology matches to it. You get access to the wormhole in your DNA. It's like everything just happens, but you're not wanting it to happen.
Right.
You're not expecting anything. You're not looking for anything.
Yes.
Just there.
You're not looking for anything. Yes. Yes. You're not. I'll give you an example. Last night, Morgan wasn't feeling well. Energy came in. I felt it too. I was having all those hot flashes. So we watched a movie. She went to bed. We have two rooms, and we normally sleep together. We have a heating pads. So I went into the bedroom to turn on the heating pads, and hers was on and mine was off. And I was like, oh, that was just an oversight. Anyway, long story short, when I went downstairs, she didn't look very good. I said, hey, I turned my heating pad on. She said, why? I said, oh, you want me to sleep in the other room now? She said, I think so. I don't feel very good. I said, yeah, I get it. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I woke up this morning late. I stayed up late and worked, and she was out front waiting for a friend to pick her up. And I just opened the door and said, hey, what's going on? She goes, oh, I'm about to go. I said, okay, cool. I said, see you later. And then the reason I brought it up is I thought about that whole sequence, and that not needing anything, not expecting anything, just letting things be what they are without any explanation is okay. Like, if it's 6 months ago or a year, or certainly 2-3 years ago, I would have been like in Wounded Masculine. Where are you going? Why didn't you tell me? Or, you know what I mean? And these things have left, and they've left, I think, to a lot more degree than we think they have. And so how do you put that in a scientific book? How do you explain that? You know what I mean? It's just you have we experience it or we don't, and then we acknowledge it, and then it grows.
Yeah, because when we're looking for something, that's where we're actually not creating, but we're actually getting in the way of what could be even more aligned and possible available for us.
Yeah.
Whereas when we step into that moment, it's like the whole universe just lines up for you.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were saying that about spherical time, is that what you said? Spherical.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately got this vision because the line would be linear, right? So just a flat line. And when you said spherical, I saw like like a more of a wave, like a half a sphere. Let's just put it that way. And I looked at it while you were talking. I thought, wow. And this is the same thing that you're saying right now, but about getting in the way of far more possibility. So I'm going across that space, and there's the linear, which is just 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree. But the spherical thing creates more and more and more space of potential, right? That's what I saw. That, oh wow, no wonder it feels like it's moving really fast, but also slow. Do you get what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. It's expanding time at the same time as well as going fast.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, which is incredible. We really are in a rocket ship, you know?
We are what?
We really
What?
are in a rocket ship.
Oh, I know, I know. We're it's and that's the thing too. I've gotten past trying to understand everything. I can only sometimes I feel like like doing these shows. I'm just here and I'm just talking to a friend and I don't have any agenda. I'm just just doing what I do, what they do, what everybody does, and it's just weird because it's not like go do this and go do that and then you got to do this and you know what I mean. All that's leaving, and I guess that's the linear part of it.
Yeah. And isn't that the magic of it?
It is. Just be ourselves. Crazy, but it's
You
cool.
become, you become the genie of your own life that way.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So what do you? Huh?
you get more than 3 wishes.
I know, I know, and oh, I could just talk all day long about the last few weeks. I mean, the 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 stuff my body's gone through. Sessions with Morgan. I'm talking a sacred sexual vibration, but not necessarily the old intimacy. We could just be having our hands together. The things that are coming in, the awareness, it really feels like the body. The human. I don't know where it is. The human aspect, the body, which is the emotional, but whatever. But it's like it's all coming into alignment with all that other stuff, and all that other stuff is kind of like I don't have time to talk about that. I'm just
Yes,
sitting here in this space, and it's working, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I don't know about you, but I don't see. I know if you read the headlines, that's different, but it's so obvious, by now the programming. I mean, it's the stupid articles that they have that are just ridiculous. But what I have noticed, because there's been a lot of people transitioning. Have you noticed that? And what I've noticed is like when I first saw this start to happen was a little over a year ago, and I remember many people they forecasted that. Going back 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they said there's going to come a time when it's going to start. A lot of people are going to choose to transition physically. But what I've noticed is like what you talked about at the top of the show, the prolonged sadness frequency isn't there. The really morbid state, depressed state's not really there. I'm not saying we all don't go there. I'm just saying it just, I don't see that type of attachment to death and loss and lack that you might have seen 5 years ago or even 2 years ago. And I know it can't just be me.
And that's not, like you said, that's not, doesn't mean to say it's not there, and that is there. But there is, in that space, there is a gift.
Yeah.
There's huge gift. That because they're either the person can go with the mind and try to understand why they're in that position, or they can drop into that the big I.
Yeah.
And because really that is an invitation to step into that place.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So, and so even if someone is going through that, and we're talking about experiencing, you know, a different state from that. But what I want to say is that if anybody is experiencing that, who's listening, that is an invitation to step into that place. And if they can just use it as a doorway to get into that, a whole new world opens up. And that's where the spherical time opens up, and the possibilities open up.
You're doing it again. It's going.
Yeah.
It takes me back to when I was on the streets. There was a lot of loss. You know, there was I think 7 people I knew in 9 months. Close people who were close to me. But I guess what I'm saying is, you're taking me back to that place, and that's what it was. That's exactly what it was. It was a combination of what you're talking about. Get out in nature when you start to get anxious. Well, I was already on the street. So I go to a park, and I can remember many times sitting under a tree or sitting on a park bench, and it's nighttime, and I can feel that thing, you know, almost like that ache, and you just break through, and then you enter it's like a void, but it's not a void without sensitivity to everything. It's really crazy. Like, I am nothing, but I'm everything.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very deep. I think I'm gonna go. The energy's coming up.
With COVID, a lot of people have been, you know, isolated, quarantined, and we hear about so many people like getting in touch with, you know, getting in touch, but feeling low in themselves. But there's a gift in that. It's like really is forcing the whole planet to.
Yeah. It's like what your friend said, like, right? It's what your friend said. I mean, at some level or another, it's what the doctor ordered. I mean, what more could you ask for? We busted our butts, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Okay, so yeah, we need to definitely get back together in a few weeks, because it's really, yeah, it's really good to talk to you.
Happy to.
Yeah. So you're online. How can we find you? What are you offering? What services? What products? You know, anything that you've got going on. You tell me your information, and I'll type it onto the comments for all the platforms right now. What's your website?
Well, if anybody wants to go and get just gets a tool, an audio that I can help people to just step into that place where you can literally allow your DNA to align with that unity consciousness, and they could just go to yourdnagift.com. And
how cool is that? That was smart. yourdnagift.com. Very cool.
And they can literally just find me on Instagram and Facebook and just connect with me, and you know, just let's do this together, all of us.
Right on. You know, we didn't get too much in, because you've been on so many times. We didn't really get into your story, and so some of these people that may not be aware of who you are and what your story is and all that, they kind of missed on that. But I would recommend you go back on YouTube and just search by her name. I think there's 3 or 4 on there, because there's some interesting conversations. You've got a really interesting, unique perspective, and it's always a joy talking to you.
You too, Todd.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.